Welcome to the Paul Cervizzi Show. I am here with a phenomenal young man, I'm going to call him, who has a phenomenal story, a successful businessman, husband, dad, and so much more. Welcome, Artie Newman. Wonderful to have you on the show. Honored, and I'm really excited for you to share all the trials and tribulations of business ownership, of life stories, and what we will call the black belt mindset. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paul. I've seen quite a few episodes, and I enjoy watching the nuggets of information and seeing everything, so far you've done, and I'm glad to be a part of it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I know you have a lot to offer people, a lot of guidance to give in many areas of life. So let's just get to it. So you have a thriving business at the moment, which we're going to really dive into your personal training and your gym and all that you're doing. But that doesn't happen overnight, does it?
Oh, it doesn't.
Doesn't, right. And it's all grass is always greener on the other side, isn't it, my friend?
Oh, it sure is. A little bit of hard work, opportunities, and luck, and we got there.
All right. So let's dive in it. You're 34 years old, but talking earlier, you've lived through a lot of different ups and downs, for lack of a better word.
Sure have.
Tell us a little bit about where you grew up. What was it like as a young age? Again, 34, I consider you a young man based on my age, but growing up in the area, or where did you grow up?
Well, I was born in the Somerville, Cambridge area.
Oh, okay.
And, my story begins with really a long line of addiction in my family.
Okay.
And so, I like to dive right into it.
Sure.
So,
no beating around the bush
No,
there.
let's get to it. I'm very blunt, honest, and forthcoming.
I love it.
And it's something you'll learn over the next hour.
Ah, okay, great.
So, when I was 4, I have an older sister who's 4 years older than I. She was 8. Long line of addiction. My mother and stepfather were addicts and, had their fair share of issues with drugs and alcohol. So unfortunately, and fortunately, I was adopted when I was 4. And, and that actually landed me in the North Shore area in Beverly, where I lived for just about 15 years.
So at 4 years old, you were adopted.
It sure was.
Yep. Another family.
Yeah, so, the way I can describe it is, obviously had a rough going, in the beginning of life. And I was fortunate enough to be adopted by 2 great parents. And, I lived, so to speak, in a world of chaos and, like I said, drugs and alcohol. And when I moved to Beverly, it was quite the transition.
Yeah.
And so the way I can describe it is, I have these new parents, fantastic situation. I have this big house. I'm in Beverly now, and it kind of seems like now that I know the all-American dream, and you have the big house and the white picket fence, and you have the black lab, and, everything went really well in the beginning of life. And I won't skip forward too fast, but as I became a teen, I started to run into some issues, and those were some of the, the past experiences of growing up.
So let me ask you a question. So at 4 years old, how do you, did your sister come with you to the, or was she adopted?
She did, yeah.
Oh,
so
you were both together?
Yep, so we were together. So
all right,
she's
so
4
that
years
makes
older.
it somewhat easier, but how does one comprehend at 4 years old, like, what's going on? Like, how do you do that?
Luckily for me, when you're young, it's not quite the impressionable age, and you actually you either don't remember or you kind of just store some details and, sort of hide them, put them under the rug.
I get it, yeah. So you were with your new home and new family, you said for 15 years?
So, yeah, I lived in Beverly for 15 years, and then we actually relocated when I went out to college.
So where did you go to high school?
So I went to Bishop Fenwick in Peabody,
Peabody, yep.
which is a fantastic school. And I think at the time, I lived in Beverly. Beverly High School was either going through some construction, or at the time, even the teachers were losing accreditation. As far as that establishment.
Now, Bishop Fenwick, correct me if I'm wrong, is a Catholic school, right?
Yep, it's a private Catholic school.
Kind of regimented. I went to Malden Catholic, so that's regimented school.
Yep.
Right. You said that your teenage years, you're kind of straight off the path, right? And tell us a little bit about that.
So, when you're 14, 15, 16 and you're entering high school, you start to experiment and you're around, different drugs and alcohol.
Yep,
and
for sure.
And so, just like any teenager, I went to my fair share of parties and I drank alcohol for the first time. And, I smoked some pot as well. But what I realized, what was happening was I was always landing myself in trouble. I'd be the guy that was starting fights, or, even further down the line, I'd always take it a little bit too far. Once
You went over the edge, right? It was a little bit over the edge.
Oh, yes, there's a theme in this. And once I got started, I just couldn't stop, either until I was face down or the cops were called.
Right. So you pushed it to the limits at a young age.
To the limit.
Okay.
Yep.
And this was during high school.
This was during high school, and cops weren't really involved, but I started to realize that even I had a good friend group, and I played sports.
Oh,
and,
did you?
Yeah, and I was a good B student. I had to work a little bit harder.
Yeah.
But I realized in high school, even the friend group that I had, I was a little bit of an outsider. And, later on, I realized that, drugs and alcohol were keeping me on kind of the outside of friendships or relationships, for that matter.
I see. So you played, what sport did you play? Or did you
Played soccer. I played some club soccer. I played for my high school. I played basketball.
Yeah.
Sitting here at 5'6",
Yeah,
I had to
same.
give my career up
Yep.
about halfway
I get
through.
it. So you played sports, you're a B student, and you're getting in trouble.
I'm starting.
You're starting, right?
Starting to get into a little bit trouble, but nothing too out of the ordinary. There's some red flags, but some teens, and especially from the background that I came from.
Yep.
I could start to begin to see a little bit of behavior problems.
All right. So the pattern started to emerge. You mentioned about the lab and the white picket fence, and I say on every single show, and I think this will resonate with you as an entrepreneur, is that we're dealt this prescription, I call it, right? You go to school, you go to high school. Some may go to college, some not. You get in a relationship. You buy a house. You have a white picket fence. You have a child, or a couple of children. You have the lab.
Sure.
You work in a day job for your entire life. One job, unlike today, right? People are all over the place.
Oh yeah.
You retire, you collect your pension, and you die, right? That was the prescription that I was raised at.
That's
And that
the
was
plan.
the time, right? But it sounds like, even though you're much younger, you brought it up, so I want to reiterate that that's kind of the plan that's laid out here in the U.S., right? You have to follow this path, so to speak.
It's laid right out
It's
for you.
right, and that's the normal thing to do.
That's right.
Right? So y'all going through, the normal, again, phase of high school, and it's a private high school, and you're going through different things. What happens next? You graduate?
I graduate. Like I said, I had to work a little bit harder, and we have a little bit of ADHD issues today, so I had to stay focused.
Yep.
And so I did graduate. I had an exercise science degree, and my goal was originally to pursue physical therapy. And
Oh, right from high school, you knew that.
well, out of college, yeah.
So where did you go to college? So okay, so you
Right.
went to college.
Yep.
Where did you go to college?
So I went out to Westfield State,
Oh, okay, yeah.
which is about 30 minutes from Amherst.
Got it.
And so anytime you don't know a different place,
Where are we going?
assume that place is in Western Massachusetts.
I see.
Out there in the woods, there's not much to do.
Yep.
You know, you have UMass Amherst, which is a 30-40 minute drive away
Yep.
in case there's nothing going on in campus. So it's easy to find the party, and it's easy to also find people that drink and drug like yourself. You can always blend in.
So you go to Westfield, and then, like you said, 30, 40 minutes away, you got UMass. If there's nothing to do at Westfield State, you can always go over there and find whatever you want to
There's
find.
always something to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were would you say exercise science major?
Exercise science.
All right,
yes.
so you were always into fitness and all that. Makes perfect sense. So what happened? Tell us a little bit about your college years. What goes on there?
Sure. So as far as college, you know, it's kind of the first time you're out of the house.
Yep,
Say
on
you're,
your own.
Yeah, say you're about 18 years old, give or take. And, you know, what you're supposed to do is develop a sense of independence or independency. And you're also supposed to learn time management.
Yep.
And so as an exercise science major, you know, let's assume I have a lab at 7:30 in the morning, and that goes until, say, 9 a.m.
Yep.
You have about 4 more hours of class. The rest of the day is yours. And that is a recipe for
Disaster, right?
So with someone, you know, that stem from addiction issues, you know, now being away from your parents for the first time, I went bananas. I went
No
absolutely-
structure, right?
No structure, right? So some of the problems, or most of the problems that I had in high school, were further exacerbated in college.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, again, I started to run into more problems. I'm getting in trouble on campus and off campus. We're starting fights. We're a blackout drinker now. And just like any other college student, I quickly realized that, you know, I didn't have a lot of money. And I ran into a group of people at the time that were dealing drugs. And, you know, I saw that there was money to be made, you know, so
Quick money, right?
quick money. So, you know, what do I do at this point in time? I'm selling to campus. I pick up the scale, and now I'm the guy that I don't want to be. I'm supporting my own drug habits, but now I'm making a lot of money, you know, so I can have more fun and I can support the nonsense that I've gotten myself into.
And you're going to class too?
I'm going to class. You know, I always made time for my studies, but I also, you'll find out further in life, I also made time for extracurricular and
Activities.
also making, you know, money on the side.
Ah.
I've always been an entrepreneur,
Yep,
legally
absolutely.
and illegally at the same time.
I got it. I got it. All
Yes,
right.
sir.
Makes sense. It makes sense. All right. So and you're still now like 18, 19, 20.
I'm young.
You're young. And did you have a roommate?
I did have a roommate, and you know, even at the time, we supported each other's habits. You know, absolutely fantastic person. Pairing us together at the time
Was not a good
It was not a good idea.
God. I can imagine. Okay.
Oh, absolutely.
So going through that college, I agree from a time management standpoint, you got a lot of free time. You
Sure
got
do.
a lot of free time, right? So unless you're like playing a big time sport, multi-sport or whatever, and working a full-time job or
Right.
even a part-time job, I mean, you got a lot of time, as you said.
You do.
You do. So you were filling up that time with some not so good things for you.
Absolutely.
So where do we go now? You're dealing, you're going to school. How does what goes on here?
Right. So, you know, from college, the cycle continues.
Did you graduate?
I did graduate. Yep. Exercise science degree. even when I graduated after, I get right into work. I work a couple odd jobs just to make some money. And I do get into, a few jobs that allow me to work in different gyms and athletic training facilities.
After college.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
So you did not work during college other than your
Other than dealing. Correct. Yep.
And did that stop after college? Or?
It absolutely did not stop.
It did not.
It continued on. In fact, and I'll tell you a little further down the line,
Yep.
but I continued to, keep a day job, but I also found a means to stay active at night and continue to make more money unnecessarily, I should add.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I find it very interesting that you were able, I'm not condoning the behavior, that you were able to graduate high school, graduate college, function, go to class, do all these things, then get out, get a job, and then still continue doing the other stuff. That's time management there, though.
I learned time management. I did use my time. As far as, today being a recovering alcoholic and addict,
Yep.
you find ways to support your habit. So, even if you work all day, you'll still find a means to support yourself at the end of the day.
Got it.
Right.
All right, so you get out of college, you're a fitness guy, you work, a couple at different gyms, what do you do?
So one of the first jobs I had, I worked at actually Gold's Gym in Reading. That's no longer.
Yep.
It was an awesome gym. I worked for just a third-party company, and I got my personal training certification. Again, I'm studying hard, and I start to build a list of clients, and again, I struggle to make money. 70% of my pay was taken away off the top. I was left for 30%.
Ooh.
So that's going to be difficult to, get an apartment or buy a house. So
Yeah, so when you say so you didn't work for the gym.
I didn't specifically work for the gym.
So the gym hires a company or
Right.
utilizes a company.
Right. Yep.
And they're in charge? Or?
Yeah. So the gym subcontracts out a third party company. And now that company is responsible for hiring their own trainers and servicing the gym in that respect.
So the gym kind of like puts it over there. They get a piece
Yeah,
of the action,
exactly,
so to speak. But you only get 30%?
So roughly it was about 30%. And mind you, this was over 10 years ago. Personal training rates are much higher now.
Right. Is it still 30%? Roughly?
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, you're not
now that
sure.
I work for myself,
We're going to get to that.
I found a
That's it.
means.
Yes,
Yes,
absolutely. So,
But-
okay, so you get what I would say a small percentage. And like you said, 10 years ago, I don't know what was the going rate to get paid.
It may have been hourly, 50% for the company. I'm getting about 30% of that.
Yes.
You do the math, it's pocket change.
It's
and
pocket
especially
change.
at that point.
Would
in
they
time.
get you the clients too?
They would help you get the clients.
Okay.
Yes. So that was one of the perks
One
of the
of the
job
perks.
when you're
Okay.
just starting out.
All right. So how long did you work there?
I would say about 3 years or so. And what I realized at the time, and again, I wasn't making enough money to
Yeah. So how do you
continue this.
survive? What do you do? Like
Yeah.
you're
So
in your 20s now, right?
I'm probably in my early 20s. I've built a solid list of clientele. If the money 100% went my way, I would have made a decent living. But I realized that it wasn't very livable,
Where were you living at the time?
So I was living in Reading, and I was working in Reading, so it worked out.
Okay.
And at this point in time, the story gets interesting because one of my clients, who's now my former business partner, I had picked him up. He was working with another trainer. That trainer at the time left to pursue a different career.
Okay.
And so now this guy, today, a good friend of mine, George, I would consider him a mentor to me.
Okay.
And so, I picked him up as a client and, we started training together. And there was one thing in particular he would do during our training sessions, and he would ask me a question, whether it be personal or even just a life question.
Yep.
And what he would want me to do is, do the opposite. He would want me to ask him a question. And I always thought that was a little weird. And, honestly, I kind of thought he was a cop. I thought maybe, who sent
Why
you?
is he asking these questions?
I
Who
thought
said-
it was a little weird. I just wanted him to do his exercises and just let me do my job and
I'll help you to
continue
get
on.
stronger and
Right,
more fit,
right.
and let me do my job.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Well, that's interesting. Okay.
And so, as a result of meeting George, he knew kind of the situation of training, and he was familiar with my boss at the time. And George had asked me a very smart question, and I didn't have an answer at the time, but he had asked me, do you want to work for the man? And I guess the second part of that question was, what do you want to do? Do you want to work for this gym and have everyone take your money? What would you like to do? And, I thought about it. I didn't have an immediate answer, and I didn't answer him right away. But let's say the next time we met, I had responded and I said, I'd like to open my own studio or have my own gym.
You said to him.
I did, yeah.
Were you at this point trusting of him, or did you? I mean, because it doesn't
Right.
fit the norm of the trainer-client relationship.
It's true,
so
it's
to
true.
speak, right? I mean, how long did it take for you to say, "Oh, this guy's not a cop. Maybe he's just." Was he
Yeah.
older?
He's older, yeah.
Okay.
Today he's in his 60s.
Okay.
At the time, we'll give him mid-50s or
Yeah,
so.
yeah. So when did you say, "Hey, maybe this guy's just, a mentor to me"?
So this line of questioning, it went on for quite some time, and again,
was consistent.
I
Okay.
I really thought it was weird. And what I would do at one point, I would go home and I would just Google search,
His-
life questions or questions to ask, and I would actually go on my phone and scroll. That's the question, and I would ask him. And and we built a relationship based on just going back and forth, asking each other questions. We learned a lot from each other. And I did start to trust him, and he made awesome progress in the gym. And just much like today, a lot of my clients, they're like family, and they end up being friends. So it ends up being almost like a personal relationship,
Absolutely.
even if it is business rooted. And so what ended up happening with George is he asked me the question. I answered, I'd like to start my own gym, and I even thought that was way far out for me. I thought that was impossible. How would I do that?
Why did you think it was impossible?
I didn't have the money. How am I going to afford the equipment? How am I going to get clients on my own? I can't say I had a lot of self-confidence in myself. Again, I came from a place where I was broken.
Yep.
All I knew was to work hard. If there was a task at hand, I would finish the task, but I was always distracted by addiction issues. And
Okay. So, but where did I get the addiction. Where do you think the work hard, finish the task came from?
in all honesty, I watched my parents growing up. My mother was a teacher.
Okay.
My father was an electrician.
Oh, okay.
And even, outside of work, they always worked hard, whether it be outside of their house. I have to give them credit. They raised me really well and,
Okay.
and instilled great principles. So I grew up in a family that showed me what hard work was.
Got it. So, okay. So
And that was instilled
you had
in
a
me.
history, and that was
I
instilled in
I
you.
did.
So back to George. So we obviously George, and we'll explore this more, and I'm sure there's a lot more to the story, but he took an interest in you for whatever reason.
Sure.
Definitely, in my opinion, was a mentor,
Yeah.
right? Tell us, because we talk about this on the show all the time,
Yeah.
and I think it's really important, is the importance of having a mentor or someone that you can confide in or someone
Yeah.
that takes an interest in you or someone that really can assist you without wanting anything back, like a real person.
So, what I found out about George is, we'll consider him a philanthropist,
Yep.
a mentor, if you will. And, what I truly believe in today, I'm almost like a personal development junkie. And so, what George provided with me or to me was he provided me an opportunity. I didn't have the confidence in myself to start a business. I didn't know what I was doing
Yep.
until he asked me what direction I'd like to go in. I never even thought about it.
Okay.
What was going on for me was I had a job. I was okay. I was making a few dollars. I could get by. I could go on to the next day.
Got it.
And so, the importance of having a mentor is, in areas where you may lack or in areas where you're unsure, you have someone that, instills the confidence in you and really steers you in the right direction. And that's exactly what George had done for me.
Interesting.
And so what I can tell you about George is, after months and months of training together, there was a session where he came in, he was carrying a bag, and he walked down the hallway, and we were about to engage in our training session. And inside this bag, it was a brand new MacBook laptop. And so, I thought that was weird, and
Another weird thing.
Right. I'm like, I'm not accepting gifts, and I thought it was weird. I don't have any money. I can't do anything in exchange for you. I didn't think I deserved that. I didn't get gifts at this point in time for my job. And, what George had said to me was, here's a laptop. I don't want anything in return. And he said, turn that laptop on, go home, turn it on. He said, download Quicken. I didn't know what Quicken was.
Yeah.
I had no clue. And what he did for me, he said, plug in your finances, take your paycheck, plug that in, any rent, utilities, any money that's coming in, plug it in, any money that's going out. Now you'll know, this was the first time anyone taught me this, but now you'll know, what you're bringing in, and what is going out.
He was teaching you profit loss already.
He
right?
was,
Yeah.
which was the first business experience or
Yeah.
even terminology that I had encountered.
Love it.
And so, I had the laptop, and the purpose of this laptop was not for my finances. It was to assist me in building a business. Remember, I told George I wanted to own my own studio or my own gym. So he gifted me a laptop. And so he provided me an opportunity to start a business with it. And, I said to George, I don't know how to start a business. How am I going to do that? Inside this bag was also a black book. There was nothing on it, blank pages. And so what he wanted me to do was, start writing things down. Again, George, I have no clue where to start. Also inside this bag was how to write a business. So naturally, I went home and I started filling up the book. And I read this book, and just page by page, the vision that I had, it started to become alive, not at once, but, I started pretty simple. I started with a logo. We're talking, pencil and paper.
Yeah. Grassroots,
black
yes.
and gray. This is old school, right?
Yeah.
So I started in that respect, and I just started with a logo. I started with a mission statement. The more I read this book, the more I started to understand exactly what I wanted to do and how I would do this. I started the next page. I started hundreds and hundreds of names. What will I name it?
What would you call it? Yeah.
Initially, I wanted to make it Body by Artie. And then I thought, well, what if I franchise? Who's Artie? So, eventually, years and years later, I ended up with Healthy Fit. But I flipped to the next page. Now we're looking at materials. The next page, graph paper. Finding, the equipment, the sizes of it, and I'm taking, the square inch graph paper and I'm drawing out the layout of the room. Eventually we get to the point where I'm filling up this black book. I have a pretty solid idea of what I'd like to do,
Wow.
and it's becoming alive.
Yeah.
It started as an idea that I never even thought was imaginable.
No.
And transpired into something that's pretty large now, which is incredible.
George changed your life.
He sure did. He continues to change my life.
I gotta meet this guy.
I'm gonna send you his info right after this. Yeah,
He sounds
Yeah.
like a wonderful, wonderful human being.
Absolutely.
Right? You used the word opportunity
Yeah.
earlier. Obviously, you said he gave you an opportunity. And I think what happens in life, tell me how you feel about this. People say everything is luck, this is that. Yeah, I guess some things could be luck. But I really think that when people are working hard, when they're trying to do the right thing, and they're making an impact in people's lives, like opportunities, I think, come this way. Yeah, the trainer he was with took on another position. You might say that was luck. Then he meets you, and maybe that was luck. I don't know. Why did he choose you? He could have done this with hundreds of other people.
It's a solid question. And I do know, for a fact that he also mentored other people as well.
Okay.
And it didn't work out, and it didn't pan out, and that's okay.
Didn't pan out with him or them? Or,
He provided opportunities, but we could say those people weren't hungry enough, or they weren't willing to put in the work.
got it.
It's a great question. I'm not sure if I have an answer.
No, I'm just. It amazes me all the time that people always say, "Oh, right place, right time."
Yeah.
Luck. And I get it. There's a certain extent that I can buy into that, but I honestly think that it has a lot to do with the person, like yourself.
Agreed.
So all right. So fast forward. You had mentioned too earlier when we were chatting that you were driving up and down streets looking for commercial property, like. So he really was invested.
He was invested.
In
Absolutely.
more than one way.
So for about 6 months or so, at the time I'm living in Reading.
Yep.
My business today is in North Reading. So I'm looking at commercial property within that area, within the North Shore. I actually had a hard time as a startup gym. What's Healthy Fit? It's not a franchise. I hadn't put my name on the map yet, so it's very difficult. So for any commercial space, just to say okay, move on in without generating any revenue or any proof of income or even business experience.
You were working at the gym, right?
Yep. And so finally, I find this place, and 133, same place, 133 Main Street today, North Reading,
Right down the street.
right across from Kitty's. I find this place, and I reach out, and I talk to the listing agent, and I'm at the point now where I have the paperwork. It's sitting in front of me. George and I are ready to sign. George signs for it. We write the check first month, last month. And, I'm ready to sign, but
This is the lease?
this is the lease. Yeah. This was for a 3-year lease.
Oh, boy.
Which was frightening to me. I didn't even know if I was going to last a year at this point.
Right.
And so, we're sitting there. George signs the paperwork. I'm ready to sign the paperwork, but I have cold feet.
Yeah.
And rightfully so. First business experience.
Absolutely.
I've been doing personal training, so I know how to put my head down and work, but I didn't know exactly how to form everything I wrote down in this book into an actual business. So this was frightening for me.
Oh my gosh. So were you at the realtor's office or where?
So I was actually home at the
You were at
time.
home.
Yep. So I was home with George, and like I said, I had cold feet. And I was looking for any reason at that point in time.
Right?
George knows the story, and we laugh about it today. And I was looking for any reason to get out.
Yeah.
And several things came to my mind. The first one was, what if I fail? The second was all the connections and all the people that I know, past friends. What if they know that it didn't work out for me? What if they find out? I couldn't stomach the idea of someone knowing, this is ridiculous, but someone knowing that I tried and failed.
Yeah, no, it's not ridiculous at all. I had this conversation with I have a side thing that I love to do is coaching other business owners and things. And I was with this other client this morning, and the same conversation.
Yeah.
Fear of success, fear of failure. It resonates with everyone. And how old are you at the time now? You're in your 20s, right?
Yeah,
You're in your
I'm in my
20s.
late 20s.
Yeah, you've gone through all this stuff.
Yeah.
And like you said, you never thought of this. You had no experience in it.
Yeah.
What did he say to make you sign? Because obviously he did.
He put a little guilt over my head.
Yeah.
He had said to me, Artie, we've been up and down the street in the area. We've been looking for 6 months. We need to do this, And I realized he's right. All that time, all that effort we put in, it's a cheesy quote, but we didn't come this far, to just go this far and drop off, right?
Yeah.
And so, I took a leap of faith and I signed the paperwork, and now I have this new location, and now I have to build Healthy Fit. But it's a lot easier now that I've built this business plan. I already have the vision in my head. And so now the next step in this is to, get in that blank building. It had old paneled wood. It looked like someone's basement.
Yeah.
And, fresh coat of paint, just ordering supplies and putting things together. I was learning, at the time.
You were learning on the fly.
I was learning everything.
So, did you know where to get equipment? Where did you?
Everything was new. I bought equipment in New Hampshire, and wanted to avoid the taxes, and everything that I did in this experience was brand new, which was why for me it was just absolutely frightening.
I love it.
Just for anyone else, if you're engaging in a new sport or a new skill, of course it's going to be scary, but that's just how it is. And
and this is really a topic that I'm really into. So
Yeah.
I had this woman. Her name is Kathy Long. She's a many-time world kickboxing champion in the '80s, and just like a fierce fighter. You can look her up, but a wonderful human being, and we became great friends. And I had her on the show, and she brought up about fear, and in one of her fights, and she said, "I embrace fear, and I'm like, interesting thought. And then I had another friend of mine on the show, and he's a tough guy himself, and fear is fuel. And I'm like, right? And I'm seeing, and another friend of mine on, and he's saying, oh, fear is not anything bad. You have to embrace fear and keep it close.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? So it's amazing to me as I look at people, and I'm sure you've found the same thing, is the people that allow fear to prevent them to sign that lease, or that allow fear to prevent them to do anything.
Yeah.
And look at where you are today.
Absolutely.
Right? So you were fearful. I get fearful. We all get afraid.
Yeah.
But at what point does that become the inhibitor as opposed to the fuel or the embracing, right? So I give you a lot of credit, because going through this myself, I was a little bit older than you when I opened my first martial arts studio in 1995, but I didn't know anything about business at all. I was a probation officer, and I wanted to be in human services and criminal justice and give back. So I knew nothing.
Sure.
So you have the black book, you've got the blueprint, you've got the space, and you hit it hard. So what do you do?
Oh, we're off and running.
All right, you get the equipment.
Yep.
You set it up.
Yeah.
How do you get clients?
So
That's the biggest thing, right?
So even today, as far as owning a gym and you have your business
Yeah.
as well. That's the hard part. Marketing is very difficult.
Oh my gosh.
And
Did I ever tell you the story? And I hate to take up
Go
your
ahead.
time. What I did for marketing when I first opened, I had a paper sign, right? And I had a sign guy paint on there, grand opening, karate opening in August, open house from this to this. And I
Yeah.
slapped it on the,
Oh,
on
I
the
love
window.
it. I
That
love
was
it.
it. And people showed up.
Yeah.
Right? Can you imagine trying to do that today? Forget it.
It would be interesting.
Yeah, interesting. You know what would happen. Now, you run your ads, do you do
Oh, yeah.
digital marketing, are you all over this? You do this? It's hard, right?
Yeah,
And that's
yep.
a business in and of itself, marketing, right?
Oh, for sure.
So
yeah.
you were the master of everything, right? You had to do
Yeah.
the marketing,
Yep.
you had to do the build out, you had to buy the equipment,
Yeah.
right? And then you have to figure out, all right, can I sustain? Right. So what
Yeah.
did you do? You build it. Tell me what
Well,
what your formula was.
It's funny because as soon as your arms went up, I thought you were going wacky inflatable arm guy, the
Oh,
big
yeah.
blow up. That cracked me up. But as you know, if you open a business, you open the door. It doesn't mean people are running in,
No.
right? So there's a lot of back end work, with respect to that. And within my job, which ultimately is sales, I am a coach, but I am selling, small group classes, personal training, amongst other things. But I strongly believe that personality sells,
100%.
right? So even I have to go back in time a little
Yeah,
bit.
please do.
I had to clean up my act, and I had to right my wrongs, and I had to understand, a little bit more about myself and kind of why I was struggling as a person. And, the sooner that I did that, the more I could be authentic, in my own person, and then I could help others.
Stupid question on my part, but I know the answer. But I think it's good for the audience
Sure.
to hear. Dealing, whether it be addiction or other trauma or things like that, can be all consuming,
It's very consuming.
right? How did you do it?
Well, it didn't happen overnight. I have to share the story of, how I recovered. And, unfortunately, there was an incident, and, I ended up, waking up in jail. And, what I can tell you is 2017, I had a DUI arrest. And, well before that, I had been driving around and drinking and drugging, and life wasn't going well for me. And like I said, I held my day job, but I was getting into nonsense at night. And so in 2017, I had ended up crashing a car, and I was on the highway, and I fell asleep at the wheel. And, I woke up, on the highway, and in the passenger seat, I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. In the passenger seat, my head was on the floor, my legs were in the air, and the glass to the driver's side had broken out into my face. And so, I woke up and, had to perform field sobriety, and I failed it. And I went to jail, and this was all in a blackout. And, I should also mention, because I just like to be blunt and honest, I ended up in court, and I bailed out of jail, ended up in court. And, I was facing, a DUI felony, reckless endangerment driving. And in my vehicle as well, I just had a backpack just full of nonsense and goodies. And, for me, I was either facing some jail time or some probation. And, to be honest with you, this was the first time that I really got in trouble with the law and woke up in jail. And, I was terrified. And it was one of the scariest moments of my life. And, just to backtrack, I bailed out of jail and I opened my phone. And when I looked at my phone, all my friends, I thought I'd have lots of text messages and phone calls. Artie, I heard about what happened. What's going on with you? I looked at my phone and there was nothing. And what I had realized ultimately is, the drinking and the drugging, it was tainting all my relationships. My number one priority was, a drink or a drug in my system. And then everything else came after that. And so, like I said, I realized that the relationships, I had and the relationships I was forming at the time, they were very surface level.
Yeah.
And it made it very difficult for me. And so, what ended up happening was, I had to get sober. I had, that was absolute rock bottom for me. I didn't want to go to jail. And like I said, the situation for me, it was so scary.
Yeah.
And so, I realized right then and there, rock bottom for me, I needed to change. And so what I did was, I got a phone number from a family friend, and they had advised me to go to AA. And so, I don't have a license. That got taken away many, many times. And I went to AA, and, what ended up happening was for the first time in my life, I was in a room full of like-minded people. I wasn't alone. Through addiction, I really, really struggled. And I thought something was wrong for me, what was wrong with me. I didn't understand what was going on until I got sober and until I sought help and really accepted the help. That's when, I found out who I really was. I was having all these issues, and, I was really good at lifting the rug and just shoving everything under it, only for that, that information just to haunt me later.
Sure.
And so, like I said, I had to clean up my act, and I got sober, and I finally, started to have meaningful relationships. I finally started to be more career driven. This is right after I started this business. I got sober at 25. I'm 34 today. So,
Congratulations.
I appreciate
Awesome.
it.
Awesome.
It's been 9 years of sobriety, and it has not been easy. And it didn't just take, going to AA and just sitting in a meeting and listening to others.
Yep.
Today, I'm very active in the AA community. I'm used to talking about, my story before, during, and after.
Yeah.
You have to understand the before and the during to understand how I got in the seat today. The after part, is the most amazing part. But what I like to, explain to people is, I really had to do the work.
Sure.
I'm on my 10th year of therapy. I really thought therapy was not the manly thing to do. You shouldn't talk about your emotions, just kind of stuff them inside.
Yeah.
But I can tell you today, I was really, really hurting. And I didn't know what to do. And so, AA saved my life. I found people that were struggling that I could connect to. I developed habits in the routine of showing up to the same meeting. I didn't know at 25 that, you could go out and enjoy dinner without drinks. I didn't know you could lead a lifestyle without, being drunk or high all the time. I didn't know that existed for my age group. And, at the time, I thought life was over. AA was not the straight shot of just a happy life and everything got better, bing, bang, bongo. But, I accepted help and I surrendered. And like I said, AA helped me. Therapy has helped me. I closed my circle in and
Made it small.
yep.
Right?
And I surrounded myself with people that also wanted peace, sobriety, and that were more focused on building their future.
I love it.
I
love it.
And even today, I had briefly told you a lot of my friends are older. They're in their 40s and 50s and 60s, and I'm, in some cases half their age. And from 18 to 25, I spend a lot of time partying. I spend a lot of time just doing things that, bad things that no one should experience and no one should see. And I had enough. The saying in AA is when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, then you'll make that change. And so, again, I surrounded myself with older individuals. I'm not saying everyone is mature, but I surrounded myself with people that were more career oriented,
Yeah.
that were starting
Makes
families.
sense, right? The Georges.
Yep,
right?
exactly. Yep. And I wanted a piece of what they had. And at the time, just a piece. And now, I want the whole thing. I'm coming for it
Absolutely.
all,
You're
Paul.
driven, right?
Absolutely.
So
yeah.
you took action, right?
I
So
took action.
You took action.
I
The
sure
switch
did.
for you, and I'm really into the switch. I call it the black belt switch, but
Yeah.
the switch was almost dying,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Almost killing someone else,
For sure.
right? Being in a cell,
Yeah.
and that was you said it, rock bottom, right?
That was a wake up call.
Wake up call. So now you have this renaissance and rebirth.
Yeah.
And now tell us where you are today, because you've got you've gone through, and I call you an old soul, and that's why I think that you gravitate towards the older folks, because you've like done it. You've lived it, right? And now it's time to hey, let me go. Let's go for it, right? So tell us about Healthy Fit. Tell us about your lovely wife and your child.
Oh yeah.
Things are going. I'm so excited for you.
I appreciate that.
I really am. And all right. Tell us about the gym.
Yeah.
What's going on? So it's not a gym in the sense like a big franchise gym.
Yeah.
Like you said, small personal training classes. How's it going?
Oh, it's going well. This month I celebrate 7 years, which is absolutely incredible. Opened up in 2019, survived through COVID, 2020,
gosh. We could
2021.
spend the whole show talking about that as business
Absolutely.
owners, right?
We're going to leave that out.
Yeah, we'll cut that out till next time.
Oh, absolutely. So, it's been 7 years, and it's been a slow progression. In 2025, I was able to, still in the same plaza, but switch over to the opposite side.
A bigger place.
So now I have double the square footage. And, it's a studio gym, like you said, roughly 1,600 square feet. And, it's not chock full of equipment. And, I'm operating personal training, small group classes. I didn't want to build, your kind of stereotypical gym where you're just packing bodies in.
Yeah, that's
You
don't. Yeah, I get it.
And, in the same respect, you're just filling it with machines. Because my tagline is, or motto is, you are the machine. So, Paul, I could stick you on a machine that just works your biceps and biceps only, but why not, operate your body mechanically so you can do that yourself? And so, I developed this space, and, a lot of my equipment is just on the exterior of the room.
Oh, like on the...
Exactly, yeah. And so, and then I have this big open floor, so I have this workable space where you can just use your own body. So in combination with a lot of body weight movements, and, I have plenty of equipment, but just not taking up the whole space.
Yeah, and you could...
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to come visit.
Absolutely.
You've got space for small group classes.
Exactly, yeah.
So is it mainly... So what type of classes do you do?
I have a little bit of everything. So if I kind of go down the line, Mondays, calisthenics.
Okay.
So all body weight. Tuesdays, hit interval. I have a lot of classes that are just circuit based. So my classes are 40 minutes long. They're not so long where you're absolutely drained at the end of it.
Yeah.
But they're not so short where you feel like you did nothing.
Right.
So my goal was really to just maximize time and maximize space within the gym. and allow you to show up. In my gym, a lot of people now are saying strive for 5. I have a lot of clients that are showing up for my group classes 5 days a week, and
Whoa.
that's really starting to catch on.
Strive for 5.
Strive for 5.
You've got all these taglines.
Oh, I
I'm gonna
love
have
it.
to
Yeah.
borrow-
Oh, yeah.
I'll give you credit, but I'm going to
Oh,
borrow
yeah.
some of
Look,
these.
I'm going to have to copy right now.
Absolutely. Strive for 5.
Oh, yeah.
So do you think that that's what sets you apart? Is this, not long, not short? Or you tell me what sets you apart from other training places?
Sure.
Because like martial arts schools, like
Yeah.
barbershops, like personal training,
Yeah.
there's a lot of them out there.
Yeah, there sure are.
What separates Artie and Healthy
It's
Fit?
a good question. I can tell you just up and down the street, there's got to be around 10 gyms, and they're all great, right?
Yeah.
What would set me apart is I am a studio gym. I'm operating out of a smaller space.
Yep.
But I do have a fair amount of strength training equipment. And a lot of studio gyms, they're not blank, but there's not a lot of machines.
Yeah.
And what that allows me to do is I have clients from 14 years old all the way up into their 80s. So,
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
exactly. Yeah. I have some special needs clients. I have older clients.
Yeah, all walks of life.
My scope is, I should say, unmatched, because there hasn't been someone that's walked in that I can't help. And if I don't have that information to help them, you bet I'll find out and I'll be able to
Sounds
do
like
it.
you've built in our building, because I know I've been in business 30, this is our 31st year, is you've developed and are developing a community, a sense of, family.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's a very, cohesive type
It's
of
amazing.
environment,
It's
right?
amazing. Yeah.
That's amazing. 14 through 80?
Through 80,
whatever,
yeah.
Whatever the age group. And
Yeah.
that's amazing. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And you have a new baby.
So I have today, Patrick, I have an 8-month baby, which absolutely is incredible. My younger self, if you asked me, Artie, will you have kids? Are you going to buy a house? Will you have a wife? None of that even entered my brain. That was never even a thought.
Just like the business.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I love it.
I like to say I grew up at 25 and I stopped and I put all the nonsense aside. And again, it didn't happen overnight. But at 25, I got my stuff together, and gradually, like I said, my relationships got better. My career, I was more focused. Everything got better for me. I found out, what was wrong with me or what wasn't going right. I worked tangible steps to fix that. And, everything that I was lacking in, it started to get better over time. And, I just think that's incredible. And, I'll explain later, but there's a lesson to be learned in that as well.
Absolutely. So inspirational. Lovely wife. Met her many times. Successful businesswoman herself.
Dinero Chiropractic.
That's right. You got thank God, a healthy baby, a thriving business.
Yeah.
And in this day and time, I mean, I'll have to tell you, the brick and mortar business is very difficult. Right?
They are difficult.
Very difficult. Takes a lot of grit, right?
It does. As you know, it's hard to compete with, your corporate America or your large scale
Online,
big box gyms.
big box, online
Oh, yeah.
training, subscriptions,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Been through it all. I agree with you 100%. So as we wind down the show, this is the fastest hour I've ever had. This is amazing, and we have to have you back because I think we only scratched the surface.
I have a lot to
of
share.
a lot of different things, and I think you could, as you do now, speaking to various groups, you could help a lot of people. Let me ask you this, and I ask all the guests this, but your story is very powerful, and being a probation officer for so many years, I dealt with people with all forms of addiction, and so many other things, but we can categorize them however we want to categorize them, right? So, and you're a parent now. So if you were a parent with older kids, say teens, that may have discovered that their kids are experimenting or maybe even more severe involved with alcohol, drugs, or whatever. There's all kinds of substances out there now, legal and illegal, that can kill you in a second, right? And a lot of parents feel hopeless, like they don't know where to turn. I think the day and age of when I was growing up, my age group, like you mentioned about therapy. Therapy back then was like, oh my God, something must be wrong. They're weak. Now everybody's in therapy, right? And there's much less of a stigma.
Right.
Same thing with alcohol. Same thing with drugs. You've got very successful people that have had addictions or going through, sobriety or whatever. What could you do to help offer advice to these single mom or parents that are experiencing this with the younger kids?
You know what? It's a fantastic question, first of all. And, what I can tell you, just in a general sense, is people need to want to change to make a change. So you can't push people. You can try pushing people in a direction. You can steer them in the right direction. But unless you really want to change, then you'll make that change. But my message is clear. And if we're talking about addiction, regarding drugs and alcohol, what's going to end up happening is there'll be shortcomings or there'll be weaknesses. So if you do find out that, friend, family, your own children are struggling with addiction issues, you do have several outlets. You do have AA, you do have therapy. But what's really happening is, it's usually a thinking problem and not so much a drinking problem. That's kind of what we like to say. And what I would suggest is you get that specific certain individual to realize that there might be an issue. And again, they do need to realize on their own that there's an issue so they can make the appropriate changes.
Yep.
But when you do recognize the issue, what you need to do is you need to take that problem and you need to put it on the forefront. I mentioned earlier I had lots of issues and I'd pick up that rug and stuff it under only to bleed on people later or, for those experiences to haunt me later in life.
Right.
And so really what you need to do is you need to take accountability. I spent a lot of time just pointing fingers. It's your fault. It's your fault. It was never my fault. I told you were a corrections officer. I didn't like any of the law, and I thought it was everyone else's fault. And truthfully, you have to hold that mirror to your face, and accountability is huge. And so, in that respect, you need to take accountability for your actions.
Right.
You need to stop pointing fingers, and you need to stop making excuses. And you need to take action. And my big message is, if you see that you have shortcomings, if you see that you have a weakness in one area, you need to recognize that and you need to exploit that area. And what I recommend is, and even if you don't see that problem yourself, you could reach out and like George did, he pointed out things to me. Like my therapist did, she said, well, this is really what's happening with you. What you need to do is, again, take accountability.
Yep.
But you also need to take action. You need to take those weaknesses and you need to flip it around and you need to make it your strength.
Got it.
As soon as I got sober, the hardest thing I've ever done is beat addiction.
Sure.
And it's made life for me a lot easier. I'm not saying that life is easy and everything is easy. But once you have defeated, your own Achilles heel or, your character flaws, you're able to move on. You can find your own authenticity. The most refreshing thing in life is I think is brutal honesty, being an authentic character. So, if you continue to cope in various ways, whether it be drugs and alcohol or anything else, you need to put your problems on the forefront. You need to take accountability. You also need to be ready to do that.
Right.
And again, make your weaknesses your strengths.
Love it.
And in this case, I told you I'm really active in AA.
Yep.
I'm very glad that at 25 years old, I went belly up and I surrendered. Enough is enough. And now, at 34, I'm just starting my life,
I love it, Artie. I love it.
And so, I told you, I watch a lot of people struggle in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Yeah.
And, life has no script and you can buy your first house at 50.
Yep.
It doesn't matter what it is. But I urge the public to take their problems and handle them so you can live a more wholesome life. And, you don't have to struggle forever and ever. I want you to figure it out sooner than later so you can live a better life.
Awesome. I love that. I absolutely love that. And I can't thank you enough for sharing your story. I know that the listeners will learn a tremendous amount just by this hour. I really think your message resonates with, as you know better than anybody, many, 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 many people. And I'd love to have you back to talk about your business and more about your story. So just as we sign off, Healthy Fit, and what's the address and how can anybody get in touch with you?
133 Main Street, North Reading.
Yep.
If you know Kitty's, that big Italian restaurant.
Everybody knows Kitty's.
I'm
Yep.
right across the street.
Right across the street.
You can head to the website for a free week trial. I'd be happy to sit down, just have a conversation with you, and then we'll take it from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Artie. A true honor. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.